Hey guys, so I might have inadvertently sabotaged your efforts, and I would like to take the chance to clear that up. I accidentally might have introduced you to a limiting belief that you previously possibly weren't severing from before, and like the basilisk theory, once you know it, you're infected. On my video about the one thing, Old Soul 3539 left a comment that my statement about willpower being limited isn't the entire story, that there have been some new studies. I love this stuff, so I immediately thanked them and looked into it. Also, I feel a responsibility to when I tell all of you something incorrect to try to fix the situation. So there is a very large body of study about what's called willpower depletion. Since it has been discovered as a concept, it has been proven to exist in study after study. People are really obsessed with the concept, but it is very far from being cut and dry. So I had only ever read about it in books. I had never tried to look at any of the studies firsthand or look at any meta studies about it, or even articles about it. So the first thing that I found that was interesting was that low glucose levels result from exerting willpower. This makes sense. Unlike the rest of the body, the brain can only use sugar for fuel, and it uses 20 to 25% of the entire usage of the body while at rest. That amount goes significantly higher when you are performing mental tasks such as thinking hard or exerting willpower. And that increased usage will cause your blood glucose levels to plummet. But what I found, that all made sense to me, but what still, because I think that we have this reverence for the brain, that it can't just be another body part. And so it surprised me when they discovered that consuming sugar can actually restore your willpower. So the Snickers ads were apparently right. And then that little fact makes all of those previous studies when they were first getting started make a lot of sense when sweets were involved. Either resisting the sweet was what caused the willpower depletion, or how many sweets the participants indulged in after they did the willpower depletion exercise. It's obvious now why your willpower would be extremely low regarding sugar in those situations where you are depleted. Another study that I found really interesting was conducted at the University of Albany and found that people who felt compelled to exert self-control for others experienced willpower depletion much more quickly than people who were expending willpower to achieve their own goals. This is really good news for us as writers. And it gives even more weight to my argument that you need to be writing for yourself. You need to be writing what you love if you hope to be able to last out the marathon. So while your willpower might be too depleted to file another TPS report, you might be able to dig deep and find the reserves to crank out another few hundred words on your writing project. But definitely, the most interesting study to me was a 2010 study done at Stanford, where researchers tested people in two groups. One group was subtly biased to believe that willpower is a limited resource. The second, that it's unlimited. The group that had been told that willpower is limited did indeed experience willpower depletion in the test afterwards. The group that had been told that it's unlimited apparently didn't. I have to think that eventually they would have. I mean, eventually you will just drop. So all the previous studies had been of a third group, people unaware of the concept of willpower depletion and not biased in one direction or the other, most likely, over the course of those many studies. Those found that willpower can be depleted. But that is not the whole story. Because the issue is both mental and physical, and we have the ability to shape our mental reality. We have the ability to add a pause between our perception and how we respond to it, and especially when we are forewarned. I hate that I put another limiting belief into your head. The stories that we tell ourselves are incredibly important. I don't know if the first half of the aphorism attributed to Henry Ford is true, but I know that the second half is. If you tell yourself that you can't do something, you can't. Because taking the first step, and then the next step, and then the next step is the only way. And if you don't take any of those steps because you think you can't, then you really can't. If you tell yourself that you could never write a novel, and so you never sit down and start, then yeah, you were right. No one is going to drag you to greatness. And yet, if you ever read the comments, you might feel like that's what I'm trying to do sometimes. I am kind of an encouragement bully. That's not just for this channel. That is in real life how I am all the time. So I've actually learned that it's sometimes better to back off, because by aggressively telling people that they can do something if they want it bad enough, it will cause them to refute me. It will cause them to dredge up every argument, all of their limiting beliefs, and dig their heels in and convince themselves of it even more, which ends up turning their mindset worse. I'm sure this phenomenon has a name, I just don't know it. And that has been a really important lesson for me, that dismissing a person's reasons or excuses without acknowledging them as being valid just makes people believe them even harder. Which maybe that could be a topic for another video. Like I said, I feel kind of bad for introducing you to that belief, but willpower depletion is a real thing. It is borne out in many studies. The problem is that I wasn't helping you by stopping there. In fact, I was making it worse. Once you become aware of the concept of willpower depletion, it will impact you more strongly. This is the same way that a guidance counselor isn't wrong to tell a kid that natural inborn talent is real, but is wrong to overemphasize it so that a person doesn't realize how much room for growth we have if we really want something. So where does that leave us? Well, so we know that willpower depletion is a real thing, but it's not simple, and that knowledge is power. That knowledge keeps you prioritizing things correctly. It prevents you from following that grind set advice of how you do anything is how you do everything. But now that we know that resisting willpower depletion is real, we can stop. And before we react, we can identify the feeling and we can overcome it. We can put it into proper perspective and realize that it is, to some degree, until we drop, under our control. Whenever I look at these studies and they bears out things that I feel like maybe I've overcome or I haven't been affected by, it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be a percentage of people who are always affected by this. But you can, once you know, refuse to be part of the percentage that quits. You can say, I have an exceptional amount of willpower. Someone else would give up, but I won't. I have enough willpower to sit down and write 100 words, and I'll probably want to write more after I get into the flow. And honestly, I think that discovering our limiting beliefs and rooting them out in the long run is actually better than not having had them in the first place. Because if you never had it, you're still susceptible to it in the future. And trust me, if only by all of my gray hair, I know that the world will introduce you to new limiting beliefs. But once you see it for what it is, once you have pushed through it, when it pops up, you can identify it and you can knock it aside. And you can enjoy some candy. You got to keep that glucose up. This is a nugget of pure willpower right here. All right. So it was a short one today, but once I read about this, I really wanted to let you all know about it. Much thanks to everyone for your comments. They constantly widen my perspective. Today, especially thanks to Old Soul 3539. I have been and will continue to be J. Allen Riker, reminding you to write, read, and live.